Should you shoot for free? The simple answer is no, but it doesn't have to be for money either. Now, I'm sure in social media groups and things like that with other photographers, you've seen lots of joke posts about people wanting you to shoot for free, shoot for exposure, how you can't feed your kids with exposure books, etc., etc. And it's all very true. I would urge you to stop thinking of it as a free shoot and start thinking of it as a test shoot or as a trade shoot. Now, let me expand a little bit on that. In the last year, I've been building my studio up post-COVID, and I've been very reluctant to do anything for free, because if I'm doing stuff for free, why would anybody else be willing to pay me? And that's very, very true. Now, the impact on that on me has actually been a little bit miserable, in that I'm only shooting things that people want me to shoot and not things that I want to shoot. So there are certain circumstances in which I think you should shoot for free, or be willing to shoot, but not for money. And they are very specific circumstances. There are definite reasons you shouldn't and when you shouldn't shoot for free too. So I've made some notes. So when should you shoot for free? If you're trying to build yourself a portfolio because you're looking for other paid work and you don't have enough images in that portfolio, then you should definitely arrange test or trade shoots with people who would make your portfolio look good. Do those for free. They get the images, you get the images, you get to build your portfolio. All's well and good in the world. Now, another reason to shoot for free is if you have an idea or some new gear to test, something you want to work on, but you don't want to be working on it for a paying client, because what if it goes wrong and you can't deliver because you've never done it before? Then yeah, find somebody who would be interested in doing that and do it for free, or even consider paying a model to come and help you do that if you need a person in the photo. Now, if you need a business in the photo, or you need to use some sort of business premises or something, a lot of businesses will be open to you shooting for them, shooting for free, in exchange for the images. Just make sure that they understand that this is a test, it's an experiment, and they may not get anything worthwhile. So all they're investing is their time, not their money. So that puts you under zero pressure. So you can get on and you can experiment and have some fun. Now, to me, those are the main reasons why you should consider shooting for free. But there are some times you shouldn't shoot for free as well. Never do test shoots or shooting for free for somebody that you actually want to become your commercial long-term client. Now, I'm sure there are some scenarios where people have done that and it's worked out very well. However, once you give somebody something for free, or what they perceive to be free, it becomes very difficult for them to see you as anything other than a free or bargain basement option. So though they may start to pay you when you ask them to, it's unlikely they will pay you a premium price. You'll always be paid the beginner's or the new starter's price. And that's simply human nature. If, for example, there's a chain of restaurants in your town, and you want to shoot some reportage images for that restaurant. Let's just call the restaurant McDuff's. And there's about 20 of them in the city, and you want to shoot for them. They're your target ideal client. Do not approach them and offer them a free shoot. Instead, find a restaurant that has a similar vibe, a McDuff's wannabe restaurant, that's small, maybe 1 or 2 branches, and do a test shoot for them. Then use those images to get you in the door at the client you want. Another reason not to shoot for free is if there's actually nothing in it for you. I know that sounds obvious, but I get approached all the time by businesses, models, Insta models, people who think I want to shoot for free because I want them in my portfolio. And while you might enjoy the shoot, you should really sit down and think, do I really need this in my portfolio, or am I just doing it for fun? Now, if you're just doing it for fun and you're happy to do it for fun, absolutely nothing wrong with that whatsoever. But don't kid yourself, you're doing it for your portfolio. Now, chances are these people who are contacting you asking for free shoots would never pay for them anyway. So you're not compromising a possible future client. Really think, is there something in it for me? Because when you've taken the shots and you've done the shoot and you've got all the editing to do, and that person's desperate for their photos and it went a bit not great, and you didn't enjoy it, and you just want to hit delete because you don't feel point in editing them because they're not good enough, it's very difficult to do that when they've approached you like that. It's very difficult, and you feel the pressure to deliver what you've done, and if you're unhappy with it, you won't. So that is one really strong reason why, if you're shooting portfolio stuff, you might want to pay a model, because if you're not happy with how it turned out, they've got no entitlement to those images, no right to even see them. So you can move on. And another reason not to shoot is if it's just for exposure. The idea of shooting for exposure, just have something to put out on there on social media, it's appealing, it's understandable, it's flawed logic. If you go about doing test or experimental shoots that you actually want to do, you'll have stuff to show, you'll have stuff to share, you'll have stuff to use in promotional material. You don't need to go and shoot for some Instagram model because she's going to give you some exposure. It's not necessary, and you'll regret doing it in the long run. Now, if you are going to arrange test or experimental shoots or trade shoots, there are a couple of things that you need to remember. You need to make sure you're there for you and you get what you need from the shoot. So you need model releases. You need them signed by everybody who's in the photos, property releases for businesses, and you do not do anything until they've been signed. They're signed before the shoot begins or midway through the shoot. You certainly don't go and edit and deliver images until you've had those back. Now, you have to make sure that the other person, if there is a person or a business that's a part of the test shoot, is getting something for the images. Whether that be for helping you, whether that be part of the images, or whether that be financial remuneration, it doesn't matter. But include it on your model release. It sounds silly, but put a section called consideration in your model release and detail what they are getting. The reason you do that is under British contract law, which is copied in across the world. British law spread quite wide because of the old empirical days. Part of a contract to be legally binding is that both parties are getting something. So you have to have something called a consideration. Once that's in your model release, and both you and the model sign the release or the property release, that makes the model release legally binding. If all you have is a waiver, which is a normal model release that says, I, Jack Smith, allow you to use the images that we took on whatever, blah, 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 then if it doesn't detail what they're getting for the images, you don't have a contract, which means they can withdraw that model release, that consent at any time, and it's very difficult for you to battle against it. Now, I know some photographers who, when they do their test shoots, they have the model release include the right to sell the images as stock photos. Something to think about as a way to make a little bit extra money out of those things. But imagine if you had the model release, you'd issued the photos, you'd sold them to a stock site, it sold them to 1,000 people, and then the model says, actually, I've changed my mind, I want those out of circulation. That's going to be a very difficult situation for you to put right. Equally, if you've gone and printed a load of brochures for your studio or for your business or whatever, and you've used images in there that have been model released, and they say, I don't want my image used anymore, that's a lot of money on printing wasted. Now, I'm not saying that if somebody comes back to you and says, I don't want to use the images anymore, you shouldn't try and withdraw them. But sometimes it's unreasonable and difficult, and you have to make sure that you're not legally obliged to do so. And the other thing is, if the other people are getting to use the images in some way rather than getting financial remuneration for helping you, you need to make sure that it is very clear what the usage is. Okay, so let me tell you a little story about a photographer. He took some reportage photos of a restaurant. And people are laughing and drinking and having fun and eating their meals and all that sort of thing. It was a small restaurant in his town. So a few months later, the owner emails him and says he needs proof that he's got permission to use the images however he wants. The photographer didn't think anything about it and sent an email back saying, yes, you have permission to use the images however you want, consider them to be yours, do whatever you want with them. The photographer had assumed that this was because he needed to get some permission to print some things and the printers were raising queries, that sort of thing. Well, actually, that wasn't true. What happened was the restaurant, and that it was being taken over by a small chain of restaurants. And the small chain of restaurants wanted to use those images in their advertising and promotion. So that small chain of restaurants, they ran the images on their websites, they ran the images on brochures, they ran the images on billboards in the town, and they ran the images in magazines. And the photographer received nothing for it. He did speak to a lawyer through his professional society that he was a member of at the time, and they basically told him, because of the email he'd sent saying you can use the images however you want, they're yours to do with as you choose, it was very open, very broad, that he had no comeback whatsoever. Now, the advertising spend that the little chain had made to let everybody know that they'd taken over this other restaurant was probably close to, if not 5 figures. So that photographer was left a little bit sad, should we say, that he wasn't remunerated in any way, considering the entire promotional campaign depended upon work he'd done. Now, I'm not 100% sure if that story is true. I don't know the photographer, but it's a very real situation that could happen. So you need to think about making sure that even if you're shooting for free, even if it's a test shoot, even if it's just a lot of fun, that if you care what happens to the images afterwards, you need to make sure that it's written down and that it's very clear to everybody concerned. Now, I'd be interested to know, do you shoot for free? Do you do test shoots? Are you a hobbyist? Do you do paid shoots? What do you think? Do you think that you should shoot for free, or do you think it's always a mistake? Let me know in the comments below. See you soon.